Hello class 10 students and welcome. आज आपण class 10 मध्ये शिकत असलेली Arrhenius theory of acids and bases अगदी सोप्या पद्धतीने समजून घेणार आहोत. We're going to do this without relying on rote memorization. It's all about just getting a clear understanding of how these chemicals actually behave. Now to get us started, think about this fundamental chemistry question. एखादा substance acid आहे की base हे आपल्याला कसं ओळखता येईल? Like if I hand you a beaker with a clear liquid in it, what makes it one or the other? That is the exact core mystery we're about to solve together. To find our answer, we have to travel all the way back to 1887. Swedish scientist Svante Arrhenius यांनी acids आणि basesची एक groundbreaking theory मांडली. His core idea was actually pretty simple, but totally brilliant. He said the secret to identifying an acid or a base lies entirely in what happens when a substance dissolves in water. Arrhenius theory, according to एखादा substance, waterमध्ये dissolve केल्यावर कोणते ions तयार होतात, यावरून तो acid किंवा base आहे हे ठरवता येते. It's basically a two-step process. First, the substance enters pure water and then it separates or dissociates into ions. It is this exact separation that gives away the substance's true identity. Let's dive into our first major concept, the Arrhenius acid. And to make things easy to remember, we're going to visually represent acids with the color red throughout this explainer. So, पाण्यात गेल्यावर acid नक्की कसं behave करतं? Let's take a look.
Here is your formal textbook definition. An Arrhenius acid is a substance which, when dissolved in water, gives H plus ions as the only positive ions. म्हणजेच पाण्यात विरघळल्यावर H plus ions तयार करणाऱ्या पदार्थाला Arrhenius acid म्हणतात. That H plus ion is literally the absolute signature of an acid.
So, the crucial general rule to take away here is this. When an acid goes into an aqueous solution, it's always going to split apart. It breaks down into a positively charged H plus ion and a negatively charged anion. The negative anion might change depending on the acid, but that positive H plus is always there leading the charge. Let's look at a specific example to make this super concrete. Example Gilia, hydrochloric acid, or HCl. Imagine this intact HCl molecule, just as it's about to enter a beaker of pure water. Right now, the hydrogen and chlorine are tightly bound together. But the very moment it dissolves, this dynamic chemical reaction kicks in. HCl waterमध्ये dissolve केल्यावर H plus आणि Cl minus ions तयार होतात. And because it successfully released that specific H plus ion into the water, त्यामुळे HCl हा Arrhenius acid आहे. Makes sense, right? And you're going to see this pattern everywhere in chemistry. HNO3, H2SO4 आणि H2CO3 ही देखील acidsची examples आहेत. Regardless of what the rest of the molecule looks like, they absolutely all share that one defining universal trait. They release H plus ions when they hit water. All right, that covers the acid side of things. Let's transition smoothly over to the other side of the coin, Arrhenius bases. For these substances, we'll use the color green just to contrast nicely with our red acids. Let's find out what exactly makes bases unique. Here is the definition you need to know for bases. An Arrhenius base is a substance which, when dissolved in water, gives OH minus ions as the only negative ions. सोप्या भाषेत सांगायचं तर, पाण्यात विरघळल्यावर OH minus ions तयार करणाऱ्या पदार्थाला Arrhenius base म्हणतात. This leads us directly to our mirroring general rule. Acid H plus ions तयार करतो, तर base waterमध्ये OH minus ions तयार करतो. Just like with the acids we saw earlier, the positive cation will change depending on the specific base you're using, but the OH minus, that's your reliable constant. Let's bring up our primary example so we can visualize this. Sodium hydroxide, or NaOH. Picture those solid, white particles of NaOH just before they dissolve into the water. Once they're dropped in, they immediately dissolve and separate. NaOH waterमध्ये dissolve केल्यावर Na plus आणि OH minus ions तयार होतात. The undeniable presence of that free-floating hydroxide ion entirely confirms its identity. त्यामुळे NaOH हा Arrhenius base आहे. Notice how consistently this rule holds up across all these different substances. KOH or NH4OH both neatly yield an OH minus ion. And check out calcium hydroxide, CaOH2. यापासून एक Ca2 plus आणि दोन OH minus ions melted. That's 2 for 1. But the underlying principle remains exactly the same. Base equals OH minus. Before we wrap this up, you really need to remember these critical rules for your exams. First off, the Arrhenius theory strictly requires an aqueous, or water-based solution to work. If it is not dissolved in water, this specific theory just doesn't apply. Also, terminology nimi laksha teva. H plus is the hydrogen ion, and OH minus is the hydroxide ion.
So, here is your ultimate summary showdown to lock into your memory. Nehemi lakshat theva ki acid gives H plus ions and base gives OH negative ions. It really is that straightforward. And by the way, ha lesson Firoz Mirza yani banawla hai.
We'll end today's analysis with this really powerful takeaway for all you students out there. Understand chemistry, don't just memorize. Once you genuinely grasp how these molecules split in water, you'll just intuitively know how it all works. Keep that focused curiosity alive, Class 10, and we'll see you next time.